Welcome back everyone to our gameplay series of Farming Simulator 17. So in our last video we had gotten started. If we bring up our map, let's see, we had gotten started working field 26 and got about halfway done. I finished that off, and that is one of the many things that we're going to be talking about in today's video. But the first thing I want to get to in today's video, as you can see, every one of our fields is fertilized and ready to go. But you notice in the top right hand corner we have about $800,000. Now that's $800,000 free and clear because we no longer have any debt, nothing to pay off, so that money is free and clear. And as you know, one of my goals is to get as many cows as we can currently support with the land that we have, which is quite a few. So let's go ahead and get that money spent before we get on and about the business of working these fields. Go ahead and get that done, because as you know, the longer the time is that the cows are on the field, the more money we will ultimately get. This is around about the time I really wish that we had a way of choosing multiples of cows to purchase rather than one at a time. I'm sure there's probably a mod out there that will enable me to do this quicker, but for our purposes right now, I do not have one. So we are going to purchase, let's say, about $800,000. No reason to leave a whole lot of money in the bank. So that's going to get us up to 567 cows, because we had a little bit over 400 already. So we'll buy 157 more. And there you go. All of our money just vanishes, and we have a whole lot more cows. Thankfully, they're not trying to show them on the actual map. Okay, so let's take a look at where we are. All of our grass fields are ready to get going, so we'll go ahead and get started working those fields. And then you also notice that field number 26 is also ready. It is at the very last level of ready to harvest, which means that we should get our best yield. So let's go ahead and get everybody started. Okay, I've already gotten him started. Okay, let's get this guy started and let him get busy cutting some grass, because what I'm really interested in is getting over to field 26 so we can get started over there. Alright, this guy should be perfectly fine. Yep, there he goes. Alright, let's get field number 28 started as well. So again, one of my big time goals for this particular map is to max out the number of cows that I can support with the area that's around here. Right now we're going to try to do that with field 28, and that's a lot of cows in and of itself. And if we come back in and take a quick look at that, I mean, you can see now that we've just purchased 150 some odd extra cows, these numbers come down a little bit. But right now what I've been trying to do is, the silage is used as the main food, and I've been putting generally about 50,000 liters of grass in there each time I go through and work the field, if I manage to catch the guy before he gets all the way to the end of the field. So that's sort of how that's been working. That gets us between 60 and 70% on our productivity percentage. It would be more if we had straw, but that is for a later time because we're not quite ready to be working with straw yet. We got some things we want to get accomplished, but long-term plans, that's probably something that we will end up doing, either turning the straw to silage or using the straw directly as bedding. So now we get back over to field 26, and you can see I have planted wheat here on this particular field, and this is something that I may very well rotate. Let's see, we don't want that. Let's go back over. I want to actually make sure I get this guy started first. Okay, field 26, empty the combine. We've got him on the combine mode, and let's go ahead and do manual search and get him loaded here and make sure he's where he needs to be. So the field that he's working right now is 26, and the The route that I've got him on is, I recorded a route that if I bring up right here, he will essentially drive down to the road, make a big loop around, hit over here to the granary, and then unload there and work his way back to field 26. So he'll sort of make a large loop. I could have made it shorter, but I kind of wanted it to be fairly long so we have as few opportunities for this guy to run into issues. Okay, now let's get back into our combine. Wait a minute, one more thing. Did I actually start this guy? No, I did not. So let's start him at the course. Okay, so he's waiting for the field level to be reached. Let's make sure we got that. So I've currently got him driving on at 20% full, which is just to make sure as we get toward the end of the field that he goes ahead and drives on. He'll start when we get to 90%. Okay, I think everybody is up and going. All right, let's get started here. Let's actually hop in. So our combine, I mean, again, we've got lots and lots of buttons over here on the right-hand side. So if you're left-handed like me, then this was definitely not made for you. Yeah, lots of buttons, and I can't even imagine in real life what all those would be used for. So many different things that you can adjust and do on these machines. There's no telling what all these buttons give you the ability to accomplish. But again, this, for our purposes, this is sort of a middle-of-the-road, almost borderline beginning type of tractor. So you see here, we're not using the straw right now. In fact, let's just go ahead and stop the worker here for a second, and we'll go ahead and turn that on. Maybe. Yeah, there we go. We'll go ahead and turn it on just because in the future I want to make sure that I don't forget to turn it on whenever we are in the process of using it. And there you can see the straw coming out the rear. But again, we're going to need a little bit of time because I want to purchase some dedicated equipment to that sort of thing. Because again, I'm looking long term on this particular farm overall instead of the short term, because we've got the equipment that could do it short term, but we would have to borrow some things from some other areas, and I'm not terribly interested in doing that just so I can keep things straight over the longer term. So we have actually made some purchases since our last video. So of course we already had our Massey Ferguson combine. We had that up and going. But one of the things that we have is we now have a New Holland tractor. And our New Holland tractor, I wanted to purchase a tractor. We had a need for one of the big sowers. Okay, and we're actually going to see the sower that I purchased here momentarily. But first, we got to get over to our field. And you see right over here in the storage area, we have our sower. And let's go ahead and get it hooked up because I needed, I believe it's 270 horsepower at least. Wow. All right, let's see now that we've got a decent angle at this. Let's go ahead and pull this guy out and we'll go ahead and get him lined up at least in the area of where he's going to need to be now that our combine is sort of out of the way in this initial stage. All right, we're going to leave him sort of right about here. I think that should be out of the way of the combine. Guess we'll find out shortly there. But this particular model, let's go ahead and pull up the store. So what I did was I picked out the New Holland tractor and purchased the engine upgrade. So we have around 300 horsepower there. And then under the sewing machines, if we go all the way to the end, I purchased this particular model. And if we take a look here, it requires 270 horsepower. So I knew I needed a fairly good sized tractor. I didn't need one of the monster tractors with 500 plus horsepower. but I did need one that was quite a bit more substantial than the starter tractors that we've been using. But the good thing here is 12 miles an hour is the working speed, and 9 meters is our actual working width. Our previous Great Plains model could only go at 9 miles an hour with a 3-meter working width. So that was just going to be no good over the long term with these bigger fields. So this particular Pronto 9DC model is a much better option for us, covers a lot more ground, and can do it even quicker. All right, let's actually make sure that we don't... Yep, there we go. You can see our tractor there pulling right up next to unload. Okay, that way our combine will be fully unloaded, and then our tractor hopefully will not get caught up on the field with the combine, and will be able to go on about his business. So of course my plan is to actually have everything going at one time. So if we once again we bring back up our map, you can see field 12. He is actually moving right along here, a little bit past halfway done with it. And then of course we'll move him on to field 14 and 15 thereafter. Over here on field 28, he is roughly a quarter of the way, it looks like, through the field, and it looks like he's headed back over to empty the grass into the silo. At this point, and of course, our combine is just getting through with its first emptying, and I think we figured last time it was going to take about having to be emptied about 5 times. It looks like that might actually be a low number, but regardless, let's actually ride along. We're getting so many vehicles at this point, I'm going to have to stop using the tab as a way to get myself through all of the vehicles we have. I'm going to have to start actually using the map and clicking on them that way. You see the sunflowers here on the right. I absolutely love the look of the sunflowers on the field when they're at this particular stage, which I believe is not quite ready to be harvested, but absolutely a beautiful sight to drive down through. That's one of the reasons I would love to grow sunflowers, just for the visual alone. So this particular tipper is perfect size. I mean, you can see we are at 40% full, so we can actually leave this guy out on the field and not bring him over to sell the grain each time, but I like it just for simplicity. Let's just go ahead and sell the grain each time we get it, because we're not terribly worried about the actual amount of money we get, and that's why I've chosen to actually come straight to this location, just to keep things simple. So we'll see how much money we get here. Okay, about $6,400 it looks like. I think the $6,900 that you see at the very top right hand corner is actually silage income, I believe. So in the mid 6,000s, we will take it. Okay, if you're not familiar, when I talked about actually selecting our different tractors and combines from, instead of using the tab, actually using the map, this is the section I was talking about. You've got several tabs that you can choose to show on the map or not show, and that also influences what shows in here, and I can easily click through all the equipment we have, and I can select things in that way, and as I select them here in this section, it actually changes the way they're viewed on the map. So at some point I'm going to have to do that, but tab is just such an easy and quick way of doing it that I'm going to have a hard time letting go of that. So with all this straw that's being left behind on the field, of course, that's a free byproduct that long term I don't want to waste, but as I mentioned, right now I really don't have the equipment set up where I want it. What I really want is dedicated straw equipment where I'll have an actual, not a tipper, but an actual forage wagon that will be dedicated to this, along with a tractor as well, and that way we will simply be able to move it from field to field and pick up all that straw and use it however we decide to go about it. It's not worth very much if we take a look in here, I mean, you can see here, it's not worth anything. I mean, you get your straw, and then what I believe we've got hay over here. I don't know exactly what all the symbols mean. We got hay. Of course, there's silage, which is frustrating because it's now up over $800. And earlier when I was actually selling silage in large amounts, it was down in the 500. So this silage seems to be making a huge turn, and it's always at the lowest point whenever I need it to be at its highest point. But again, the straw and so forth are really not very much. Hay, that kind of thing, are not really worth very much if you sell them directly. So if you're going to mess with them at all, you're really much better off dealing with them on a more useful basis, with either working with your animals or using it to make silage. Okay, we're at 88% fill level, 89. Remember, our tractor is going to fire up and get started at 90, and sure enough, here he comes. So you notice we're using the blue tractor, one of our starting tractors for this particular task, and that's simply because I don't need the heavy tractor for this particular one. Let's see, and once again, as we get to the end, that's pretty good, 98% fill level. So that works out pretty good. Let this guy go ahead and empty out the combine, and then as he does that, we will be ready to move on. And then once we get somewhere around halfway through the field, I'll actually start the sower and let him get going as well. Okay, let's pull back up our map. Okay, yeah, as I thought, field 12, he is getting very close to being done. There goes our tractor. And of course, what I could have done is simply gone right over there, because that's where the tipping location is to sell. Could have done that, but again, just trying to keep things simple. It is too easy for these things to get stuck on trees and posts and that sort of thing, so I'm just trying to keep it simple. Let's make a wide circuit for that. Alright, let's see how this guy's doing. So he's got 54,000 that he's waiting for to be converted over to silage. And yep, perfect timing here on field 12. As he gets done with field 12, we will go ahead and get him emptied out. There we go. Let's go ahead and blank that off and get him loaded up for field 14. We've got our unload trigger. Let's go ahead and dump that out. And then we'll get this guy started on field 14. And this also gives you a great idea as to why I like to start a map in general this way. Especially whenever I plan on focusing on animals, which I have chosen to do on this particular playthrough, because it just gives you such a nice level of income that is steady and enables you to purchase all the land and equipment you really could ever want because of the substantial amount. Oops, I tabbed right by it. There he is. Alright, let's go ahead and get this guy started. He's going to fertilize field 12 for us. Goes. That's looks like he didn't quite get all the way to the edge, but not a problem. Alright, let's get back to over to our combine, which is where I really wanted to spend most of our time. Because one of the other things I wanted to mention to you guys is I've decided I want to sort of break up my gameplay for Farming Sim a little bit. Because as I mentioned, the whole point of this gameplay series was I had not played Farming Sim 17 up until this point. I had stuck with 15 for a lot of hours, an embarrassingly high number of hours. And now that I've moved over to 17, I really wanted to see how things worked on a lot of different areas, and one of the areas I wanted to get to were different maps. So now that we're up and going and we've purchased some fields on this map, and I've sort of gotten the lay of the land on this particular map and sort of know what to expect, I started looking at not only different mods but different maps as well, and I have found a few that I really like, and one in particular that I want to start playing on here in the near future. So probably what I'm going to do is, for now, I'm going to split time with our episodes, and I might do an episode on this particular map and then another episode on the other map, and we'll just see how things go with viewership and how much I am enjoying it. Uh-oh, we've got slippage. I'd never like to see that. Okay, it's obviously not this guy. So this guy is trying to do what? Oh, he has gotten, it would appear. All right, let's go ahead and get him. It's almost like he got jackknifed as he was trying to back up. I'm not sure. That's the most likely thing, because I know these guys do not like to back up very much with trailers attached. Alright, so we're going to miss, looks like just a touch of grass there, but that, of course, on a field this size and the way we're using it, that is a non-issue. But yeah, I've seen that happen before, where these guys, when they try to back up, it almost looks like a carnival ride as they're swinging back and forth with that trailer. But they usually end up getting it taken care of without too terribly much issue, but every once in a while you have to get them unstuck. But going back to our discussion about the maps. So I found a new map. It's actually called the West Coast. As I mentioned, it's one of actually several maps that I found that I really like and want to do some playing on and really do some work on before we get to Farming Sim 19 this fall. And I'm really looking forward to getting started on it. It's a very different type of map, and it's really why I've chosen to sort of start on it, of the different types of maps. And it's because it is, number one, it's a huge map. Has something like 90 fields on it, so the size of the map itself is not small by any stretch, but it feels very, very cramped. As I was walking around, I have done zero work and zero gameplay on the map. The only thing I did was basically loaded it up and walked around it a little bit just to get a feel for sort of the visuals of it and just the feel in general. But I wanted to leave as much to the imagination and as much to discover during our gameplay series as possible. But yeah, it almost feels claustrophobic, which is weird to say because it is such a huge map. But the roadways are very narrow, which gives me concerns on getting things back and forth to be sold and also to be delivered to different locations. But also within the farm itself, I mean, here, basically on this map, everything is just wide open. You can see the fields are, for the most part, we've got some pretty large fields here. In some cases up to like 10 plus acres. Whereas on that map, you have some larger fields, but most of it is, they're smaller fields and they're fenced in, and it's a very claustrophobic type field. And I'm really interested to see how much I enjoy it. Because it could go either way. It could be the type of map that I really end up loving to play, because I think I'm going to need a lot of different equipment because of the claustrophobic conditions. But on the other hand, I might not like it at all because I can't move around. So we'll see. we'll see how it goes. It might force us to use some different equipment than what we're using on this particular map, which is kind of what I'm hoping. Hoping that it'll present a different type of challenge and a different type of fun, as opposed to working on this map with its huge wide open spaces and plenty of land to turn around, plenty of land to move back and forth, all that sort of thing. So we'll see how it goes. But I am very interested to get started with that particular playthrough. All right, let's pull up our map once again. And so there's no doubt, as we move forward in this gameplay, my plan as of now, and of course that's always subject to change, but sort of the idea that I've got in mind is that this particular combine that we're using here, which is sort of a late level starter, sort of beginning middle stage combine, is to take it, and as we purchase some of these, 22, 23, 24 fields, sort of move it up onto to be used on one or more of those fields, and purchase a much larger one for this particular field, and then some of the others as we start to really spread out and get into some of the bigger fields. I mean, you can see field number 20 is actually extremely large. Field 5 is huge. Field 1 is actually a pretty good size. And then, of course, some of these 27, 29, and 30, I'll have to decide where I want to go with those. I may decide just to grow our cows to humongous proportions and have so many cows that it's just, ludicrous size. But again, that's the fun of it, is just sort of seeing how I feel about all of these fields as we get to them. But there's no doubt that this could be really fun, and we'll see how long the series lasts. Let's go ahead and get a save in here while I'm thinking about it. Yeah, what I say about all of the series here on the channel is the series will last as long as you guys are enjoying them and as long as I am enjoying them. If either one of those ceases to be the case, then the series goes away, because if you guys aren't enjoying the series, then there's no reason for me to take the time to record them, edit them, upload them, and all sorts of things like that. To put in that extra time, I can simply play them off camera. And then on the other side of things, if I'm no longer enjoying the game, then it's definitely not worth continuing on the channel, because the whole point of this channel is to share with you guys some of the games that I really enjoy playing, as well as the other family members, when I can get them to do any recording, that is. Alright, let's take a quick... I'm always tempted to get this guy started every time there is open land for him to work, but it's a little bit too early. He would catch these guys pretty quickly, I'm afraid. Alright, so here looks like we've got 105,000 ready to go, and very little that is remaining right now. You can see a little over 5,000 there. Now again, if I went from 5 times the speed of time to 15 or 30, then that would definitely decrease the time it takes for this grass to turn to silage. But I try to use a fairly low time multiplier while we're actually working the fields, so that the fields all tend to come due at about the same time and are ready to harvest around the same time. You can see here this guy has what, maybe 2 more swipes to make, and then he will be done with field 14. Okay, this guy's actually, he's probably been done for some time, and I really have to come back and get that grass again. It just accumulates there in the turnaround areas, and it actually turns out to be a huge amount. You can see it on each of the fields. All right, there we go. Now you can see the carnival as this guy tries to back up with it. But again, it looks weird as he's doing it, but generally it works out okay. He doesn't end up jackknifing it, but that's probably what happened to him before. he got it turned just a little bit too sideways and got stuck. So now we can clearly see he is past halfway on the field and is moving along quite happily. And of course, as soon as he is done, I will actually move back over that should time pretty good to this guy. Because I actually, for right now, need this tractor for the fertilization of that field. So long term, we need some more equipment because I don't like sharing with so many fields. I prefer to have dedicated equipment so I can just leave things where they are, and it's easier for me to remember what the purpose of each tractor and piece of equipment is. Just a whole lot simpler that way. Alright, this guy's coming back over, and he gets lined back up around the time that this particular combine hits about 50%. But in the future, it will be more than 50%, because we will have a much wider working width as we purchase some of the bigger combines. Really looking forward to that. So let's take a quick look at our combines while I'm thinking about it. Let's go under our harvesters. So, all right, so here, this is the guy we're working with now. The Massey Ferguson Activa 7347S and 8600. Oh, wow, it just started raining very hard outside. Hopefully we don't lose power, because that would be unfortunate if we did. So 8,600 liters and about 300 horsepower there, so not bad. But what I'm interested in as we move forward is, of course, the biggest thing will be this horsepower number, because as that goes up, we can actually operate a much wider working width. You can also see that the capacity goes up as well. Let's see what we've got. This guy actually only operates at 15 instead of 18, but he 12,000 liters. Wow. But you can see, I mean, for twice the price of what we pay for the Massey Ferguson, we could get the big guy here. 14,500 liters, which is a huge amount, nearly double what we currently have, and of course also better than double the horsepower. So here you can see that we would have the ability to pick out, I'm sure it would basically work with any header we get, but in particular these big 45 footers that you can get into. Let's see, right now we are actually using, I want to say it's this one, the 25 footer. So again, nearly double the actual working width here. Not quite, but nearly double the working width. That is just huge to think about. And again, that means you get it done twice as quickly. And of course, his capacity is not quite double. So it means that we would probably be offloading into that particular tipper a little bit more often than we do now, but not a whole lot. But the biggest thing going forward as we get into these larger fields is going to be me trying to decide, what do we want to do with this straw? Do we want to mess with it at all? Of course, in this particular case, I'm referring to growing the crops that would actually give us straw, of course. Not all of them will. Actually, I think just 2 of them will, if I remember correctly. One of them, of course, being wheat. But yeah, what do we do with all this straw? For now, we're not going to be doing anything with it. I'm simply going to get the sower ready and get him going about his business. But in the future, I don't know. It's certainly worth a lot of money for us in the silage market. But we could also, again, use it for the animals as well. It just depends on whether or not it's ultimately worth the trouble. And that has a whole lot more to do with other factors and not just to do with money. Money is just part of the equation here. We're already making tons of money, so that's not really a huge issue. All right, so we're running a little bit long on time, as pretty much to be expected, because we are about, in fact, this pass will take us about halfway through the field, which is perfectly fine. Again, tempted to get that guy started with the sowing. And now you can see we are about done with field 14. Excellent. All right, so let's go ahead and recap sort of where we have gotten to this point in our series. I mean, you can clearly see we are making quite a bit of money on silage, and now, of course, we're going to have some other products. Right now, wheat will be figured into this as well. You can also see these numbers have gone down, particularly on the previous day, simply because I spent so much time with under time acceleration, 60 or 120 times. All right, our cows are doing great. I'll refill all of these off camera, so you guys don't have to worry about that. I'll keep our cows taken care of. We're still running somewhere around the mid-60s, and productivity was the definite possibility of increasing that if we so decide in the future. And again, is it worth it? That's the real thing. And then, of course, along with that, oh, looks like this guy is done. We'll let him sit there for just a moment. Let's head back to our map, because again, long term, I really would like to pick up 22, 23, and 24 and actually move this particular combine over to that area, and then pick up a new combine to work this much larger field, and really have it as a dedicated combine for that very purpose. But for now, that's going to do it for this episode. Thank you very much for joining me, and stay tuned as we continue our gameplay series of Farming Simulator 17.